Welcome back to Smart Life. I'm Dr. Gina. We've covered the types of people that you should avoid if you don't want your success to be squelched, but that's only half the battle. What are the types of people that we should seek out to associate ourselves with? Well, clinical psychologist Dr. Dathan Paterno here to tell us. Dr. Paterno, welcome back to Smart Life.
Good to talk to you, Gina.
So, this is when I had to come to grips with this topic, Dr. Paterno. I was actually trying to explain to my daughter why certain people that she wanted to be friends with, I didn't think were a good idea. And I was explaining to her how perhaps they weren't as profitable to her as a friend, how I didn't see them growing her, things like that. And I had to sort of step back and evaluate the people that I had in my own life at that point. Not everybody's a parent, though, so maybe they haven't had that come to truth moment. So what do you advise people to just, first of all, take that inventory? How do you inventory the people in your life? I said a pie chart, but what's your idea?
Yeah, well, I like the word need tank. We all have different tanks in our lives that need to be filled, and people help fill those tanks. Obviously we have our love tank, so we need people in our lives who fill up our love tank. But we also have fun tank. We have the intellectual depth tank. I need somebody that I can be with to really get in the intellectual weeds, somebody who can hang with me intellectually and push me. I also have a spiritual tank. I have a values tank, and then I have a hobbies tank. And everybody's got different tanks that they need filled. So I think if you start to kind of understand yourself in terms of your needs and those needs that you need filled, then you can start to define the kind of person who you need in your life.
It's really interesting that you say that, because it's an interesting way to think of it. And for some reason, the song Love Shack is now playing in my mind. I'm not sure what that has to do with it, but you can analyze that because you're the clinical psychologist here. But one of the things that I found that I spent too much time on, spun my wheels on, I think, in a way, is trying to help people. And especially for those of us in the helping professions, this can be a real problem we have, can't it? That need to feel needed, that
Oh,
need
sure.
to help people, but maybe dedicating too much of our life to those dead end relationships that aren't actually helping anybody. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, what I say is that we need a foundation of Goldilocks people in our life. We can't always be helping other people, and we can't always be helped by other people. Really, and I know this is very cliche, but it's true. We need balance in our lives. When we're in the helping profession, and whether it's surgery or politics or psychology, you're helping other people, and you're being drained in a good way. And that's, God designed us to be like that. But we need to be refilled, and sometimes what we need filled is not the same thing that's being taken from us. So we need balanced relationships. Goldilocks was, she didn't want something that was too hot or too cold, too hard or too soft. She wanted it right in the middle, and we need that in our relationships. So I think watching out for extremes is really important.
So these tanks that you're talking about that we need to have filled, that should be pretty well in balance with one another, is that, and would it help then to sort of take a piece of paper and draw this out and write your tanks and put people in them and see how balanced they are?
Yes, I actually do that with clients, and it's very helpful. It helps people define themselves. So, for example, people think that they want loyal friends, right? But loyalty to a fault is one extreme. We also don't want somebody who's never loyal. We want somebody who's in the middle. We need people who will both love and support us, but who can also tell us when our breath stinks sometimes. So that balance is really important. And if you understand that you have a need for loyalty in your life, if that's one of your tanks that helps you, feel full in life, then you really need to look out for that in relationships. Another one is, how much do we need people to agree with us in our fundamentals of life, such as your prime directive, whether that's spiritual, religious, or something else. But you also don't want somebody who agrees with everything, because then you're not going to be challenged. So you need a balance between that and somebody who's not going to agree with you on every last point, because that can kind of be boring. So you need somebody who can push you on some things. You see how you want a little bit on the left and a little bit on the right in terms of what you need from your friends in order to push you and encourage you and fill up your tanks.
You bring up a great point about those people who challenge us in our lives, because I very specifically at certain points in my life have put people in my life that maybe, to be quite honest, I don't even like that much, but they have grown me in ways that are very valuable. And even in some of those cases, I hate to put it like this, but enemies can push you.
Hmm. Absolutely, because they sharpen you. I mean, if you
Yeah.
know that you have to answer for, things that are very important to you, and you're not always preaching to the choir, it's very easy to do that. But if you know that you're going to have to make a difficult argument, you're going to sharpen your tools. You're going to sharpen your wits. You're going to have to do some research in order to prove your point with people, and in order to make it so that you're as confident in what you believe in as you thought you were.
Yeah, that's a great point because I have noticed that when I'm going on one of those shows where I know I'm going to be really attacked, maybe Comedy Central or for crying out loud, Wife Swap. Oh man, I've got those points down, and I might not work quite as hard to go on a conservative show as I will to go on those others because I know that I'm going to be attacked. And I guess that's what I'm saying, that we need to bring those things into our lives that challenge us. But at the same time, we don't want to be so focused on what our enemies think of us that we're letting them tailor us to their image of us. That's tricky.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
So as far as the things that we are learning from our children as we're trying to teach them this, one of the places where I found it very difficult, frankly, to counsel my own children is how to cut those people out who aren't productive. What do you say? What do you do? I mean, you can't just be like, hey, dude, I don't want to be your friend anymore. My mom says you're not, how do you do that? How do we tell our children to do that?
Yeah. Well, again, it's got to be about you. When we talk about boundaries, and I know you probably know about Cloud and Townsend's boundaries books, which are tremendous. You don't make it about the other person. You don't say, you stink, you are X, Y, or Z. You have to talk about yourself.
Great point.
This is what I need. And you talk about tolerance. I can't tolerate this. I'm not willing to do this anymore. Okay. I'm not willing to hang out with somebody who treats me with disrespect anymore. I'm not willing to, date somebody who doesn't respect me or my boundaries. I'm not willing, all that kind of stuff. And so you make it about you, which kind of gets the other person off the hook, which is fine, but you're really standing up for what you believe rather than what the other person thinks or wants, which really matters less when you're trying to break off a relationship. Does that make sense?
No, that does make sense. And being as in certain situations, some of these people are going to be work related. Some of these people are going to be family members. But if they're not as productive in your life, at least cutting down the amount of time and energy we're putting into that particular relationship. If you're batting your head against a wall trying to make someone who's maybe in your family, whatever, extended family, whatever, think you're the greatest, then maybe you just cut back on that a little bit, right? It doesn't have to be a cut off. It can be a cut back.
Well, sure. Yeah, you can let it kind of die on the vine, so to speak, if you start to spend less time and make less effort into that kind of purposely. A lot of people will get the cue.
Yeah.
So those who don't will start to kind of pull away anyway because other things will fill up their lives.
That's
and
right.
That's fine.
And sometimes these things kind of do miraculously work themselves out. And that's the other thing I love about all this. Dr. Paterno, you are always informative, and people can get your books, of course. Desperately Seeking Parents is one of them. The other, of course, ladies and gentlemen, my co-author on that book. Dr. Paterno, thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. Take care.
You too. Now, up next, we're going to talk about the types of friends our kids should be allowed to have time with, and the adults we should allow them to be around. We have to be careful, most careful of all with our children. And then, of course, we're going to go to your calls, 888-650-8176, so you stay tuned. More Smart Life with Dr. Gina coming up right after this.